Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. I'm just appreciative that you are listening or viewing or watching this particular podcast, and we're glad to have you. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be called Open Tabs. This might be like a reoccurring thing that we do on the show where sometimes there's just not exactly, there's always something to talk about, obviously, but then sometimes there's nothing specific I want to make sure I cover. And I could have come up with something. We could have, wrestled the brain around a little bit more, but there's just so much going on in the world that I just kind of wanted to maybe do a little deep dive on some things. So Open Tabs is going to be something we'll do every once in a while where we'll just start opening tabs. We'll do some research. We'll do some things together. We'll figure things out. And, of course, there's some stuff in the news that we want to talk about, not only country music, but golf. And those are a couple of my biggest interests. So let's get into it. All right, so obviously this is going to be one that would be much better suited for the YouTube listeners and viewers, but, we can kind of have a discussion about some things, and maybe I can find a way to edit the audio around to fit, Apple, and, it's a video on Spotify too, but I think how'd this get there? So if you're watching on YouTube, there's going to be, hopefully, if I can get it to work correctly, an entire screen recording of what we're doing and what we're looking at and some of the videos and just different things like that. And then, that'll kind of be going at the same time as me talking. So let's get into it. Dolly Parton passed away. And 80 years old, but still hard to believe. Still hard to believe that it actually happened and that she's gone. I mean, a pioneer of country music. Very brief battle with cancer, as you can kind of see in our search here, but just one of those household names, one of those that will always be on a top list, a top 10 list, a top 5 list, if you're looking at top females in country music. But I think the biggest thing is just her music overall and what she did for everybody. And those fans that are in country music, I mean, you start looking at some of the music that she provided us, obviously 9 to 5, not only the movie, but the song Jolene, Islands in the Stream, just unreal stuff. I mean, Islands in the Stream is probably as good as it gets when it comes to music. Oh. And not just because Kenny Rogers is on it. Obviously, Dolly has it too. So yeah, Dolly Parton, gone. What was her husband's name? Carl Dean. She's been married to that man for, I don't know, her entire life. They were like our late teens, I think. Where does it say? Probably says it right here. 18, he was 21, that sort of thing. Yeah, Dolly Parton. I would say, other than her massive hits, I don't know a lot of Dolly Parton's music. And I'm a little bit, shameful of that. I feel like as a big country music fan like I am, and a lover of the classics, I feel like I should know a little bit more about Dolly, or at least a little bit more about her music and some of the deep cuts. But I think that just comes with the territory. A lot of times in country music, there's a lot of artists who are huge names, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that person, and you know a couple of their songs, but then you got to thinking about it, and you're like, oh boy, that's a big name that I know, but I don't know a lot of their music. But the beauty and the sad part about all this is when somebody passes, you tend to be able to kind of go back in time and investigate and learn and maybe fall in love a little bit more with what they put out into the world for everybody. And so I guarantee we'll be doing a deep dive, in our free time here, listen to some old Dolly albums and trying to find some deep cuts that really hit home. And then that's where I kind of like to keep those in the old memory bank in the back of my mind. And it's like every once in a while you think about, oh man, Dolly Parton passed away. That was just a few years ago. And you can go back to those songs that you really enjoyed from whenever they were alive or whenever they were in their heyday. And so I'm pretty excited to take the rabbit hole journey down some old Dolly Parton music to try to increased my fandom. I mean, obviously, her personality had to be the thing that just made her unlike anybody else at that time. You know, a lot of times in country music, it was frowned upon in the women's side of things to even be out there or even singing for a while. But then that had kind of changed. And I would venture to say that in the country music world, and definitely like the bluegrass world and everything that she came up in, it's probably a little bit more accepting, because you kind of have to have those voices in the church. You have to have those voices just in music in general to give just a different viewpoint of life. And I think for Dolly, she not only was a great singer, but I think she was a true songwriter and a storyteller. And I think she came up in an era where you had to have a little bit more than that even. You kind of had to have a personality, and to be a woman in country music and to end up being a famous woman, and one of the most famous women, if not maybe the most famous woman in country music, some would argue, you kind of have to be a little bit different. Like she said, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. So not only were her looks, but her outfits, but also just her personality. And anybody that kind of lives, in a rural area and, has a lot of country folk and church and bluegrass and country music and that type of lifestyle, the local Opry, playing music with all the old folks down at the whatever you call the Opry, could be your Legion, could be your VFW, whatever it may be. To her, that personality was pretty normal. Everybody kind of laughed and everybody enjoyed it because she was funny, but that's a pretty normal way to be. A little bit sassy, but funny, always kind, good-natured about it, can take a joke, makes fun of themselves, that sort of thing. And that's just true down-home funny right there. I think I'd call that like hee-haw type funny. So yeah, a little bit more old school as far as that goes. And obviously going to be very much missed. Yeah, they never had kids. There's an article here talking about that. And you just kind of wonder, maybe it was just all about their careers. She kind of says that she believed that God didn't mean for her to have kids, so everybody's kids could be hers. So I could do things like the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Oh, goodness. We've been avid users of that over the years. 31 years, 3 million books, 5 different countries. That's huge. Helping kids read. Always good books, too. So the fact that you could send out free books and use your platform for great like that, I mean, it's just really great to have that ability. So rest in peace to Dolly Parton. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 2016 and renewed their vows. But she had medical issues too. Oh, there it is right there with the children. So that was obviously part of it, her song, Jolene, inspired by her husband. I think it was a bank teller where their local bank was. Her husband kind of had a little different, he didn't do nothing, I don't think, but he kind of had a little different pep in his step whenever he saw old Jolene down at the bank. So rest in peace to Dolly Parton. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, female woman that was ever part of country music. Another point that I wanted to talk about was the Good Good Golf ad controversy thing. I don't know if we'll be able to see it. They definitely took it down quickly. You can kind of see it here. So she goes to reach for the driver, for those of you that are listening. Garrett Clark, main head guy of Good Good. Now we got a new story popping up. Runs over, knocks her down, and says, don't touch my new driver, or something like that. Let's see if we can get this done.
found by both Good Good and Callaway following the criticism. The video shows Good founder Garrett Clark run towards golf content creator, also Good Good, Alexis Liskowski.
Yeah.
Shove her to the ground when she tries to pull out his driver. Good Good apologized.
Yeah, so they posted a video. They made a statement. They said the actions depicted are not aligned with our values as a brand. We have since taken the content down, and then kind of Callaway just put it out of their. They try to push it off to the side and basically be like, yeah, this is not okay. PGA Tour is even kind of. But here's the thing about Good Good. They're kind of known for being good dudes. A lot of what they talk about, maybe not all the time, is a lot of faith-based stuff. They talk about that sometimes. It's definitely, I wouldn't say, I don't watch every single Good Good video, but I wouldn't say that it's like a massive thing in their content. I'd say it's just kind of always there. It's always kind of an underlying thing that is talked about enough, except for maybe Matt Scharf. I would say he talks about it more than most. And so, of course, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do. I mean, you can still make funny jokes and off-color jokes at times and be, a believer of God and a religious person. That doesn't necessarily change that. But I would say that plus their brand of they don't cuss on their videos. And if they do, I think they bleep them out. They're very younger. Their audience is very younger, very much younger. In fact, those that are my age probably started out watching more of the foreplay golf guys that are on Barstool Sports because Barstool Sports is more of the millennial and older. Now it's trying to trend a little bit younger to capture that younger audience, but I mean, I would say its core audience would be the ones that are mid to upper 40s and below, mostly early 30s. I would say that's kind of the main window, but Good Good is probably mid 30s and below into the teens, even preteens. I mean, there's young kids playing golf. There's young kids starting YouTube golf channels because they love Garrett Clark and they love Matt Scharf and they love all these guys. And of course, Brad Dahlke is probably the best YouTube golfer that there is because we've talked a lot about the YGT. But as far as like the ad controversy, I don't know, man. I mean, in today's day and age, 10 years ago, maybe that ad doesn't trip any triggers. But then there's always that underlying thing of any press is good press. And I don't think Good Good is necessarily not going to want to get any press. I mean, I don't think they're going to be so upset about even some bad press. Because in the reactionary world that we live in, it's just one of those things. It's one of those things where you can do something that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, and maybe there wasn't any intention on, or any malicious intention. It was meant to be more funny. And the reaction can kind of do the same thing as if everybody would have reacted the other way for you. It can create drama, yes, or it can create haters, or it can have people that, completely don't want to be a part of what you're talking about. And then it can go tenfold the other way. The pendulum always seems to swing back the other direction on a lot of these things. Where at first it feels like, oh my gosh, everybody hates this. They're not going to want to be around us. But then eventually as the video, I mean, we see, you can still find it online because that's just kind of how things work. As people see it, they may start dissecting it and say, well, it's not that. I mean, these guys are good dudes. They're just trying to make like a funny joke. I guess my thing is, how many layers at Callaway, at Good Good, at these agencies? I mean, I just don't understand. This is where I think maybe there's a little bit of a conspiracy. How many people did this have to go through before they decided it was just, let's put it out there? I don't think it's like terrible. I mean, the fact that it's getting picked up like this is a little bit nuts. It kind of reminds me of the Michael Block situation on the YGT, where they left the mic on, probably didn't know where he was, so they didn't think about turning his mic off. And then they released the video or the audio with no video, and basically say, this is Michael Block after the final hole of the YGT and blah, 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 blah. And then they end up like taking it down, I think, or maybe it's still up. But Grant Horvat's like, I'm very sorry. There was no, I didn't have any ill will or wasn't trying to do anything, malicious towards Michael Block. He's a friend, blah, blah, blah. But then when it blows up like that and so many people pick it up, it's like, well, I mean, was it really only you that decided to post it? Surely there was not a handful of people. When you get that big, you got to have like these teams of people who can discuss these things with you. And I guess maybe not. Maybe I don't know the ins and outs. Maybe I'm not informed enough. But I just would like to think whenever you're that big, you're as big as some of these golf brands are. I mean, they're LLCs, they're incorporations. These are multi-layered businesses and companies. Fortune whatever companies are growing to that point. They've got apparel, they've got merchandise, they've got all kinds of stuff. They're a brand. So there's just got to be more people involved than just the personalities that are out front. So I guess my thing is there had to be somebody who was like, maybe this is a little bit not okay. Should we maybe think about it? Or were they all just kind of like, nah, it's a little bit distasteful, but hey, it's going to do numbers. Any press is good press. So that's where I have a problem with like releasing it and then deleting it and then acting like you never meant for that to be the reaction. It's like, well, but you recorded it, you thought it was funny, and so you don't think that there was a group of people out there that would also think it's funny? Because to me, that's the hardest part about trying to be comedy or trying to be funny in your promotional stuff and your social media, because all of it's subjective. Like, I didn't think it was funny, but I didn't think it was funny because it just wasn't funny. Like, I mean, it wasn't like stupid. It wasn't like, oh. And I wasn't upset by it. It didn't upset me to watch it. It just simply wasn't that funny. So I think that's where this whole problem lies of you put stuff out and then because the reaction wasn't immediately okay, you immediately take it down. You issue an apology. And it's just, I mean, we've seen the videos that I put up. They're not always funny. But in the moment, maybe I thought it was funny. And maybe a handful of people that watched it chuckled at least. We've seen the podcast numbers that I put up. I've said some controversial things, especially in the world of country music, about Riley Green, about Ella Langley and Megan Moroney, and it's definitely my biggest, most controversial topic was when I talked about Parker McCollum and how terrible of a singer he was, or is. He's not terrible, but everybody acts like they all say it's his sound. It's like, well, that's just a nice way of saying that he sucks at singing. His sound is to be off key and sharp. I guess I just don't understand. I just don't understand that point of view, So I guess in the end, it's just one of those things where that's where the conspiracy comes out a little bit for me, where it's like, there's just too many people involved in your camp, especially Good. Grant Horvat, maybe. I mean, he's kind of his own guy. I'm sure he's got people around him, obviously, that handle a lot of things. He probably runs things by, but at the same time, he's a little bit smaller, quote unquote, operation. He's a bigger name, but he's also he's a one-man show, whereas Good is all these different things. I mean, I think they just sold to a company. I don't know if they went public or whatever, but basically Garrett Clark's like the CEO or the COO, and everybody else is like an employee of this company. So I guess that's where the conspiracy thing starts to come in for me a little bit, where I just kind of assume that you put it out knowing that it was a little bit racy or whatever, or could potentially be taken one way or another. You had to know. You also had to know that it's a joke and not everybody's going to find it funny. But to do it, not get the reaction that you wanted, and then to immediately pull it back and to issue an apology, I just find that odd. Odd behavior. It's odd behavior, as they all say. What else is going on in country music? Let's check it out. What is going on in country music? This is kind of how we'll wrap up here because I don't have much else for you. I mainly wanted to talk about Dolly Parton. And the other thing, Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks going back on tour. Thank God for TikTok, because we all know Garth. The man just can't, he can't allow anybody to have his music besides Amazon Prime. And it's a real problem for me because I have Amazon or Music or whatever, Prime Music, whatever you want to call it. But it really kills the vibe whenever you're like, you know what would sound great right now? A little Colin Baton Rouge to be mixed into this playlist. And I got to go from Spotify to Amazon Music and then back if I want to go to my other playlist. So that's a real Debbie Downer. And you can't like go and watch, even if he had his own YouTube channel where I could go and watch some of the Double Live album, the DVDs that I have in the box set. I'd like to go online and see some of those sometimes, because whenever the man does a tour for 18 years and then he tours for like 6 years and then he stops for a few years, you kind of get a little bit like you want to, you get a little bit nostalgic. You want to go see it. I don't take videos on my phone at concerts, and so I'm not going to, be able to go back on my phone and watch the video of the concert. So the Blame It All on My Roots arena tour just started out in Indianapolis last weekend. And it's funny if you watch him. I said thank God for TikTok, because people are taking videos, they're uploading them. I'm sure they'll all be taken down at some point, because you're kind of, unless this is how he changes his tune, where he starts kind of a grassroots movement, because it would be hella good for him on ticket sales. Not that he needs any help, but if you start letting people put out videos of your show, you could hit a whole new potential audience with that. Now, they might be making fun of him a little bit because he's not exactly striped shirt, smashing guitar Garth from back in the day. which is, I mean, that's, he's older. I mean, he's got kids that are grown-ass adults now, 64 years old. So, obviously, he's not going to be sprinting up the drum set cage and jumping off and then, like I said, taking a guitar and smashing it against another guitar. But from the videos that I've seen, the stage is maybe a little bit smaller, but it's still set up in a way for him to move as much as he wants to, at least. And if you've never been to a Garth show, I mean, unless you just absolutely hate him or hate country music, I think if you hate him, you got to go to a show just to make sure that you hate him, because I've never seen anyone, at least in the shows that I've been to, control an audience and the feeling and vibe of the show more so than the 4 or 5 times that I've seen Garth. And I've seen plenty of live shows. But he just has this way, because his music alone does it for you. But the way he just interacts with the crowd, the way he builds the momentum to certain points, gets to almost a fever pitch, and then he just kind of slides it over a little bit where it's still high, but then it's a ballad. You get to listen to the river, and then he slides back into Papa Love Mama, and it's kind of like a rock show all of a sudden. He goes back up here, and it's just, he holds you in the palm of his hand and decides which way he wants you to go. And I'm biased, love his music, always have, regardless of how people perceive him. The whole Chris Gaines things is not great, but in his defense, that album was released to garner some attention towards a movie where he was going to be the actor. Chris Gaines was going to be the actor. There was going to be a movie. That was the soundtrack. Movie never comes out, so then what gets lost in the mix is Garth Brooks trying to be a punk rock guy, an emo kid or whatever. Which Trisha Yearwood talks about all the time, how there's some really good songs on that album that she really enjoys. She's like, I really kind of like some of that Chris Gaines stuff. So the music itself with him is perfect. I mean, he's got fantastic songs across the board. It just needs to be available everywhere. But the thing about Garth that he set himself apart was his live show. I don't know if he's ever publicly said this, so maybe this is a hot take, but Garth, I think, wanted to be George Strait, but he probably didn't feel like he could just stand there and do nothing on stage. Because let's be honest, you may not like Garth music, you may not like country music, but you sure as hell wouldn't be bored at a show. The guy don't really stop moving much, except when he does the house cleaning thing where he gets out an acoustic guitar and plays the songs that you want to hear that he sees on the signs that people bring to shows, which is unreal because sometimes he'll play Billy Joel, sometimes he'll play John Mellencamp, sometimes he'll play a Garth song no one's heard in years, a deep cut off an album. So I think he thought he wanted to be George Strait, but he didn't know how or didn't think he was capable enough to be as good. Because who can stand there and do nothing for 3 hours and be George Strait and captivate a whole audience? I mean, George Strait's the only guy doing it. Zach Top is the next one. You got to have the voice, you got to have the musical, but you got to have something that keeps it all together. And I'm sure George Strait always hasn't been, standing still on stage. I'm sure early years he probably moved around quite a bit more, but now it's kind of become a thing where the Ace and the whole band and George Strait stand there and play you 60 years of number ones or 60 number ones. But I think Garth wanted to change the dynamic. He wanted to change how country music was done. If you hear him talk about live shows, he's like, there's a science behind the whole thing. And he loves the science behind it. He loves the squared circles. He loves the pieces and where everybody goes, and loves to, rehearse the show and the lights that go with here and the this and the that. And he wanted to turn a country music live show into a rock and roll concert. And again, even if you don't like him or you don't like country music, I don't think you can argue with what he did in the 90s. I just don't think you can. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, Garth on tour. That's always interesting and always a good show. Hopefully this was a good show. We didn't get a lot done. We didn't necessarily cover everything we wanted to cover. But we also didn't know what we were going to cover. So we wanted to talk about Dolly. We wanted to talk about Good Good. And I had forgotten, but I definitely am glad we came across talking about Garth Brooks. So hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Give me some ideas in the comments. Check out the clips of each show and give me some things that you want me to discuss further in some episodes. And we'll just keep chugging along. I mean, this is a hobby, and it's something that I take just a few, basically a lunch break every week, knock it out, throw it up online, and every once in a while people get really interested in it, and every once in a while everybody just my family listens to it. So that's just kind of how the show goes. And I hope that somebody gets something out of it, whether it's just purely entertainment value and interesting to listen to and hear me kind of talk about this like I did today, or whenever we kind of go more on the motivational side or the mentality side of things, and we try to give you advice and, help coach you through your life, because we're coaching ourselves through our lives. And you only get one life to live, so you might as well live your best life. Go out there and make your own way, because that's the only way that you can do it. And at the end of this life, all you have is your name, and a name is what you make it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.